This video is part of the You Protagonist series. Here, you don't just listen to a story, you live it, feeling every moment and emotion. With every scene, every choice, you are the main character. To help you see yourself in every step of the journey, the protagonist's face never appears, and no name or physical traits are ever mentioned. So take a deep breath, close your eyes if you'd like, and get ready to feel it all like it's real. The salty breeze brushed against your skin, almost as if it were trying to erase who you once were. Every morning, when you opened the window of that small rented room above the cafe, you reminded yourself, no one here knows. No one has a clue. And that was exactly what you wanted. The narrow streets of the coastal town quickly filled with familiar sounds. The boats docking, the bakery bell on the corner, the laughter of barefoot kids running down the sidewalk. Life there seemed light, simple, peaceful. But inside you, there were still the ruins of a world that had collapsed. You'd changed your name, your story, your very skin. But the pain, that came with you. And sometimes, all it took was a smell in the air, a particular sound, and everything came rushing back. A past you'd buried in a hurry. A life torn apart like a photo shredded and scattered to the wind. Working at that cafe felt safe, jotting down orders, serving tables, flashing mechanical smiles at people who didn't ask questions. The clean uniform, the tight bun high on your head, the thick apron. It all worked like silent armor. And you hid well, maybe too well. But at night, when the town fell asleep, there was no running from yourself. The mattress creaked under your tired body, and your thoughts came crashing back like waves on the rocks. Why did I survive? How long can I keep all this buried? What if someone finds out? You stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of loneliness pressing on your chest. The same loneliness that had haunted you since that day. The same one you tried drowning in empty routines and stale coffee. But it stayed, loyal, constant. As if whispering, you can change your name, but you can't erase your soul. And even in the middle of all that fear, there was a hidden longing, a reckless impulse that made you wonder, what if someone saw through the disguise? Could you ever be loved without being uncovered? You hated yourself for even thinking that. Because starting over meant staying safe, not exposing yourself. Love was a risk you couldn't afford anymore. Not after what happened. Not after all you'd lost. And yet, something inside you still flickered. A hope that refused to die. That night the sky was clear, and the full moon cast a silver glow over the sea. You stepped outside to bring in the cafe's patio tables and lingered for a few minutes. Sitting there, feeling the wind play with the loose strands of your hair, breathing like that salty air might wash it all away. That's when you heard something strange. An engine. It wasn't normal to see luxury cars around there. You turned slowly and saw headlights stopped across the street. Too dark to see who was inside, but bright enough to trigger that gut-deep feeling of danger. The next morning, those headlights still haunted your mind. You tried convincing yourself it was just some random car, someone lost, but your body knew better. The pit in your stomach, the tightness in your hands, the weight on your chest, that wasn't coincidence. Even so, you stuck to your routine. Opened the cafe, wiped down tables, arranged the bread in the wicker basket, like always. The first customers walked in, smiling with familiarity. You gave back your practiced smile, all while keeping one eye on the door, until he walked in. The doorbell jingled softly, but the silence that followed was deafening. He wasn't from there. That much was obvious. Dark clothes, posture too upright for a place where people lived in flip-flops and carried sea salt on their skin. But what got under your skin the most was the look in his eyes. Eyes that weren't searching the menu. They were fixed on you. He walked up to the counter and asked for a coffee. His voice was steady, deliberate, with a slight accent you couldn't place. You served the cup. He didn't take his eyes off you, not even for a second. And as you turned to walk away, he said, "What's your name?" You froze. Couldn't tell if it was just small talk or something else. So you gave the new name, the one you'd practiced 1,000 times in the mirror until it sounded real. He nodded, as if accepting it, but the slight raise of his eyebrows told a different story. He didn't believe you. Or maybe he didn't need to. The coffee sat untouched for a few minutes while he scanned the cafe, like he was mapping the place. Then he stood up, paid with a bill folded in half, and left without saying another word. You rushed behind the counter, relieved to see him go, but then you saw something that shouldn't have been there, a thin black folder, left on the chair where he'd been sitting. For a moment, you hesitated, but curiosity beat out fear. You opened it, documents, statements, codes, and right in the middle, a photo of you, not the new you, but the woman you were before you ran, before the trauma, before the fall. Your heart raced, your palms went slick. The folder slipped from your hands and the papers scattered on the floor. You picked them up quickly, like you could somehow stuff the panic back in too. Why would he have that photo? Who was this man? You tried to think logically. Maybe he was a cop, a detective, a spy, but nothing about his appearance screamed law enforcement. There was something too dark about him, too powerful, too dangerous. That night, you double-locked the door, shut the curtains, slept with a knife tucked under your pillow. Fear came back to visit, like an old acquaintance. But this time, it didn't come alone. Because with the fear came something else. A strange warmth in your chest. A shiver that wasn't just a warning. And now you knew. That man wasn't there by accident. He came back the next day. And the day after. Always at the same time, like the cafe had become part of his daily routine. But it was obvious it wasn't about the coffee. He barely touched the cup. He'd just sit in the same chair, watch you with those sharp eyes, and leave after a few minutes, leaving a folded bill on the table. And you pretended not to feel anything, pretended not to notice, pretended even to yourself. But it was impossible to ignore his presence, the way the entire atmosphere shifted the moment he walked in. How the customers looked at him with suspicion, as if sensing he came from another world. One darker, more dangerous. And yet, you found yourself waiting for him. Every single day. Until one day, he spoke. Not much. Just one sentence. "I like watching the cafe's movement." You nodded, trying to seem indifferent. But inside, those words echoed. Like someone who carries things they can't say out loud. And that disarmed you. Because you saw yourself in him. In his eyes. In his silence. And in all the things he didn't say. You started to notice the small things. The way he held the cup with steady fingers. The woody scent that lingered in the air whenever he got close. The way he leaned back in his chair like someone who never truly relaxed. He seemed like a man always ready to fight. Or run. And you hated what it did to you. It wasn't just fear. It was admiration. That warmth crawling up your neck. The restless hands. The thoughts that wandered to him before you fell asleep. You'd promised yourself never to get involved again. Never to trust. Never to open up again. And the fact that he had a photo of you made everything more tense. More confusing. Then one morning everything changed. He was late. You pretended not to care, but kept glancing at the clock. When he finally came in, he didn't go to the table. He walked straight to the counter. And with the lowest voice he'd ever used, he asked, "Why do you lie about who you are?" The blood drained from your face. You tried to smile, tried to make up an excuse. But he didn't push. He just placed another folder on the counter and walked out. You stood there, frozen, for long seconds, until curiosity won again. This time, it wasn't just your photo. There were records, old addresses, your real name, a nearly complete file on the life you tried to erase. How had he gotten all that? Why? And most of all, what did he want? But even in the middle of panic, something inside you didn't want to run. Not yet. not without understanding. Because as much as he scared you, to you, he felt more mysterious than dangerous. You tried avoiding him as much as you could. But on a rainy afternoon, as you stepped out the cafe's back door to take out the trash, he was there, leaning against a black car, like he knew exactly when you'd show up. Your heart raced, and for a second you thought about running. But his eyes didn't let you. It was like they held your feet to the ground. "Why are you following me?" Your voice came out firm, but shaky inside. He stepped closer, holding an umbrella over the two of you, shielding you both from the light drizzle. "Because I know who you are." His words cut through the air like a blade. Your stomach twisted. Your chest felt like it sank. You wanted to deny it, to scream, to shove him away. But all you managed to ask was, "What do you want from me?" His gaze, once hard, softened for a moment. There was no threat in it, just something deeper, almost painful. "I want to know why you're hiding." You felt the anger rise. "That's none of your business." He grabbed your arm, not with force, but with a kind of urgency that made you tremble. His touch burned, sending everything inside you into chaos. "It is my business if someone's after you," he said, his voice low now, almost a whisper. "You have no idea what could happen." The tears almost came, but you refused to let them fall. "I already lost everything once. I'm not going to let you take what little I have left." He took a deep breath, closed his eyes for a moment, like he was fighting something inside him. And when he looked back at you, there was vulnerability. "I don't want to take anything. I want to protect." You let out a bitter laugh. "Protect? From who?" He didn't answer right away. He just let the umbrella tilt slightly, letting a few drops of rain fall on both of you. "You have no idea who I am," he said. His voice faltered for a second, but then he continued. "And still, for some reason, I can't bring myself to leave you alone." Your heart picked up again. You hated what that did to you. Hated the heat in your hands, the lump in your throat, the shiver that wasn't just fear. Suddenly, a metallic sound rang out in the distance, like the click of a camera shutter. You both turned at the same time. The alley was empty, but the feeling was clear. Someone was watching. He turned back to you, his gaze sharper now. "We don't have time. You need to decide if you trust me." Then he got into the car and drove away. That night felt longer than all the others. The sound of the waves crashing on the shore didn't bring peace, only a constant warning, as if each crash reminded you that something was lurking. You closed the curtains, but the sensation of being watched didn't leave. And yet his face wouldn't leave your mind either. His words, the grip on your arm, the gaze that hovered between threat and promise. Late in the afternoon, he came back. But he didn't come into the cafe like before. He waited outside, leaning against the black car. You knew you should ignore him, pretend not to see him. But then his eyes met yours through the window, and he motioned for you to come over. You stepped outside, faking composure, and walked up to him. "What do you want?" The question came out firmer than you actually felt. He didn't look away. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." You hesitated, but in the end, you gave in. He took you to the pier, where the wood creaked beneath your feet, and the wind carried the salty scent of the sea. He told you about his past, shady deals, dangerous alliances, debts that could never be repaid. Said he tried to cut ties, but never really could. Then, with a heavy sigh, he admitted, "I saw your photo in a dossier, from a man who used to be my ally, and who now is your enemy." Your whole body froze. "My photo?" You could barely get the words out. He nodded. "It wasn't about who you are now. It was about who you tried to leave behind. Your real name, your old steps, your hiding places. They're still after you." You felt the world spin. The ground beneath your feet seemed to vanish. But he kept going. "I didn't know why they wanted you. I just knew there was something in your eyes in that photo. Pain, but also strength. I recognized it. It was the same look I saw in my own eyes every day. That's why I came here. Not to expose you, but to get here before they did. Your heart pounded. You wanted to hate every word. Wanted to believe it was a trap, that he'd been sent to hurt you. But his voice didn't sound like a lie. And you thought, if he really meant to harm me, he would have done it already. Silence settled heavy between you. The wind blew hard, raising goosebumps on your skin. When you looked away, he stepped closer and gently touched your hand. Lightly, like he was asking for permission. You felt your body tremble. The touch burned, and the desire tangled itself up with the fear. But before anything could happen, the screech of tires shattered the moment. A black car pulled up on the street above the pier. Your whole body turned to ice. He looked too and muttered, "They've found you." Air got stuck in your lungs. You had no choice left. He tightened his grip on your hand. "Trust me. Now it's not just an option. It's survival. You need to come with me," he said firmly. "Why?" Your resistance was more instinct than conviction. "Because this place isn't safe anymore." His eyes locked onto yours with an intensity that hurt. Deep down, you knew he was right. But saying yes meant crossing an invisible line. It meant trusting a man you didn't really know. Against every promise you'd made to yourself, you followed him. He took you to a house tucked away on a hill, where the sound of the sea felt farther and the wind moved freely. The door creaked as it opened. Inside, the scent of old wood and an unlit fireplace filled the air. It was a forgotten place, simple, but solid. Safe. No one will find you here. You walked through the space like someone who didn't believe in promises. Your hands still trembled, but his presence filled the silence. He lit the fireplace, and the flames cast a soft orange glow that danced along the walls. You sat on the floor, leaning against the worn-out sofa, trying to steady your breathing, trying to make sense of your new reality. He sat in front of you, not invading your space, but close enough that the warmth from the fire blended with the warmth of his body. "You still don't believe me, do you?" The question came softly. You let out a bitter laugh. "I don't believe anyone." He lowered his eyes, as if that answer hurt more than it should have. For a moment, the two of you just stared at each other. The fire crackled, sending up timid sparks. The smell of smoke mixed with that woody scent that clung to him. You wanted to pull away, but you were trapped. Not by his hands, by his eyes. He was the one who broke the silence. "You know they won't stop until they get what they want. But with me, you've got a chance." You shook your head. "And why would you care?" He took a deep breath, his eyes glassy for a second, something he tried to hide. "Because when I saw your photo, I realized I couldn't save myself. But maybe I can save you." The words hit you like a jolt. It wasn't what you expected to hear. It wasn't what you wanted to hear. But there was no denying the impact. Without realizing it, your hand moved to steady yourself on the floor. But he met it halfway. His touch was firm, but not forceful. It felt like it said, "I won't let go." You tried to pull back, but your body betrayed you. You stayed there, feeling the heat of his skin warming your cold fingers. And when you finally lifted your eyes, you found a vulnerability that didn't match the powerful man he seemed to be. The world outside was still dangerous, but inside that room for a few moments, you felt safe. And you realized that despite all the fear, you had already crossed the line you'd tried so hard to avoid. The days that followed were different. You tried to pretend things were normal, but there was nothing normal about the way your body reacted to him. In the house by the sea, every moment of silence between you two was thick with something words couldn't describe. He didn't talk much about himself, but he was always present. He made strong coffee in the mornings, lit the fireplace at night. Sometimes he'd just sit quietly, watching the flames. Other times, he paced the room like a restless animal, like he was fighting something invisible, something inside himself. On the third night, a storm hit the town hard. The sound of rain pounding on the roof was almost deafening. The lights flickered, and for a few moments, the only glow came from the fire. It was then that he came closer. "Are you still afraid of me?" His voice was low, but heavy, like he carried the weight of the question on his shoulders. You hesitated. "I don't know. Should I be?" He frowned, as if he didn't understand. The silence between you grew thicker, until he moved even closer, his knees nearly touching yours. His warmth was inescapable. His eyes locked onto yours, like he was searching for permission he didn't dare ask out loud. You tried to look away, but he took your hand. The touch was firm, but gentle. And when his lips brushed against yours, everything crumbled. There was no rain, no danger, no past, just the warm, desperate taste of a kiss that had felt inevitable from the very first glance. At first, you wanted to resist, but when his fingers slid to the back of your neck, pulling you closer, your whole body surrendered. It was intense, almost painful. Not from hurt, but from the need you both carried. And when you finally pulled away, breathless, he rested his forehead against yours. "You have no idea what this means to me," he whispered. That night, you gave in. There were no promises, no guarantees. Just two broken bodies that found in each other a temporary refuge. All through the night, his touch was strong, but careful. Every gesture felt like a plea to be remembered, as if he hoped it could erase all that had come before. And even as desire took over, there was tenderness. You didn't feel used or invaded. You felt seen. You felt cared for. Wanted not just for your skin, but for the soul you'd tried to hide from the world. When the storm passed, you were still there, wrapped in each other's arms, listening only to the sound of your breathing. For the first time in years, you fell asleep without fear. The bed still held his warmth when you woke up. For a second, the world felt whole again. The pale light slipping through the curtains, the woody scent in the sheets, the distant sound of the sea. But then you turned your head and saw only emptiness. Your heart skipped a beat. You called his name once. Then again, softer, like you were afraid to wake a ghost. The house answered with the creak of the wood and the whisper of wind slipping through the cracks. In the living room, the fireplace was nothing but ash. On the table, a mug with a thin layer of cold coffee. No note, no explanation, just silence. Vast, heavy, cruel. You washed your face slowly, as if the water could delay reality. You dressed without hurry and carried on with your day, confused and uneasy. You waited until late afternoon, and when he still didn't show up, you made your way back down the hill, returning your body to the routine. The next morning, the cafe bell, the aligned tables, the subtle hum of the grinder, the smell of bread warming the air. The usual customers came and went, asking small questions, offering gentle smiles, and you answered, kind too. But your chest felt like a drawer left slightly open, everything inside swaying and unsettled. The hours dragged by, thick with absence. With every jingle of the door, your heart braced itself to see him. And with every face that wasn't his, a crack stretched deeper inside you. You tried convincing yourself that men like him disappear because they have to, not because they want to. You tried, but it didn't stick. Because something felt off about the way the silence settled in the corners, like a fog that wouldn't lift. Night fell with the smell of sea salt. You closed the register, turned off the lights in the dining room, straightened the chairs. The final click of the lock brought a brief sense of relief. That's when you saw it. Under the threshold, a pale envelope, its edges stained like it had come through rain. No sender, no known markings. The air grew thin. You picked up the envelope with both hands. The seal gave way easily, as if it had been closed in a rush. Inside, a single note, handwritten in a slightly shaky but intimate script. "Don't try to find me. It's safer this way." The letters wavered before your eyes. Your body knew how to recognize a lie, and that sentence felt like one. Not because of what it said, but because of what it carried. It didn't sound like goodbye. It sounded like a warning. Like someone speaking through clenched teeth in a rush, glancing over their shoulder. You turned the envelope over, more from reflex than hope. Your thumb found a subtle raised mark, a light-pressed seal, nearly invisible. 3 parallel lines, carved like claws, crossed by a central dot. The symbol you swore to forget. The mark you once saw on the corner of pages no one should ever read. Your blood turned to ice. The memories stumbled in. A dark room. Numbered folders. Whispered voices sharp as blades. The organization that collected names and traded fates for money. The same emblem, hidden in footers, in stamps, in signatures. The same unspoken promise. Nothing ever really ends. The note weighed in your hand like a sentence. If he had written it, just him, it would have said something else. He would have used your name, the new one, the old one, or none at all. He would have left a clue only the two of you would understand. But that seal, that was a message from outside. You read it again, slower now, as if the paper could reveal subtext. "Don't try to find me. Someone who says that isn't choosing to leave. They're being taken, pushed, surrounded. It's safer this way." For who? For you, clearly. And for him, if he stays away from you. The math of a threat is always simple. Love becomes weakness. Your chest clenched until it hurt. You pressed your forehead against the cold wood of the door, breathing in salt, paint, and old dust. Your fingers ran over the raised symbol again, like tracing a burn scar into skin. The question you'd been avoiding since morning finally took shape. Did he disappear to protect you? Outside, the night had eyes. And now, so did you. And from that moment on, they were wide open. You didn't sleep that night. The note kept echoing in your mind like an order. Stay quiet. Instead, you turned on the desk lamp, pulled out the old phone hidden inside the lining of your bag, and inserted a SIM card you swore you'd never use again. The number lit up the screen like a ghost from the past. The first call went to voicemail. So did the second. On the third, someone answered. Hoarse voice, cautious. A name you hadn't said in years rose in your throat like rust, and for a few seconds the past rushed back in. Narrow hallways, windowless doors, a file full of names that shouldn't exist. You got straight to the point. You needed a favor. Last time. Silence on the other end, then a sigh. And the question you feared. Did he find you? You didn't answer. You heard fast typing, the crackle of a noise filter. And then, the man who was hunting you. He's off the board. The words were cold. He's down. It wasn't an accident. He was silenced. The floor inside you shifted. But the danger hadn't gone. The same voice confirmed what your body already knew. He wasn't working alone. There was a structure. Other arms. Other mouths. Other eyes. And one new detail, small as a splinter, sharp as a blade. Your name is still in circulation. Not as a person, as currency. You hung up with trembling hands. The house seemed to shrink. Your breath came short, and in that pause, you heard it. A soft noise at the door, not a knock, but the sound of paper scraping against wood. Another envelope, pale like the first. But this one, no seal. Inside, nothing but a small paper with scribbled numbers and letters. Coordinates. The faded ink betrayed the rush. Without thinking, you grabbed your coat and your keys. The rest of your fear came with you. The street was empty. The asphalt shimmered with ocean mist. You drove with your fingers glued to the steering wheel, feeling the engine's hum in your bones. The coordinates led you to the old dock, where rusted warehouses held things no one dared ask about. The air smelled of iron and wet rope. A dog barked twice, then stopped. The wind dragged a sheet of newspaper across the sidewalk, smearing headlines you didn't read. The warehouse marked by the note looked forgotten by time. Metal doors, a loose padlock, a single flickering bulb inside. You pushed the entrance with your shoulder. It groaned open. Inside, dim light, suspended dust, the soft echo of dripping water. And then, footsteps. Slow, dragging. Your name, the new one, cut through the air in a voice you'd recognize even in total darkness. It was him. His face was marked, a thin cut across his cheekbone, the dark shirt stained with something the flickering light turned into shadow. His eyes, hard on the outside, but alive within. You ran 2 steps, then stopped, as if some invisible line demanded you honor the shock. He raised a hand, signaling for silence. You weren't supposed to come alone. Then why did you send me this? Because I couldn't go back to the cafe without exposing you, he answered, stepping closer. The first note was forced. They were nearby. The coordinates were Plan B. I'd meet you here, far from their eyes. He opened a backpack on a rusty table. 2 documents, keys, a map with routes marked in pen. His fingertips trembled just slightly, enough to show the cost of the courage it took to face all this for you. And now? Your question came out smaller than your desire to stay. He took your hand, steady, unhurried. Now we leave together. No heroics, no drama, just precision. Outside, headlights swept under the door's crack. They stopped, moved, stopped again. The dog barked a 3rd time, then went silent. He turned off the light with 1 touch. In the dark, your breath met his, mismatched rhythms searching for sync. His woody scent mixed with the rust in the air, and fear took the shape of focus. Listen, he said softly. There are 2 exits. One in the back, leads straight to the side street, or the internal walkways, farther. But we win if we don't do the obvious. The obvious is running through the back door. Exactly. That's why we go up, he said, nodding toward the walkways above. You nodded. Your body had already decided before your mind caught up. Footsteps scraped against the metal outside. Short, professional voices. He tilted his head, measuring the distances. Then he pressed his forehead to yours, for a second that held a lifetime. On 3, he whispered. 1, 2. His hand squeezed yours. The world shrank to the sound of your own heartbeat. 3. His 3 still echoed in your chest when the 2 of you began to climb. The catwalks creaked beneath your weight, cold metal biting at the soles of your shoes. The air in the warehouse tasted like rust and standing water. You felt the place like a living organism, breathing through dripping pipes. He stayed a step ahead, his hand reaching back every now and then to make sure yours was still there, like checking if your pulse was still beating. Voices cut through the silence below, sharp, controlled. You held your breath without noticing. He squeezed your hand, a silent message. Keep going. At the top, the side door jammed on the first push. On the second, it gave with a metallic groan. Wind rushed in, cold, salty. The side street looked empty, but with the kind of emptiness that watches. You both ran down the exterior staircase, almost at a sprint, stitching shadow into shadow until you reached the corner. His black car sat across the street, glowing under a lamppost like a target. Too obvious, you thought. He didn't head for the black car. He cut into the next alley and opened a low gate that led to a yard with 3 covered vehicles. He pulled the tarp off a beat-up old hatchback with dull paint. Cold plates, freshly bolted. You got in. The engine started with a soft purr. The headlights didn't turn on right away. Deep breath. Second try. This time, yes. He kept the lights low and took the back road, like someone who knew the maze by heart. The first few blocks were pure silence. You could hear the engine's hum and the dry thud of your heartbeat. Every headlight in the rear view felt like a predator. Every turn, a boundary. He drove with steady hands and restrained breathing, like someone used to running from danger. Like his calm was a second steering wheel. "Inhale for 4. Exhale for 6, he said, eyes on the road. You obeyed. The world shifted back into place, by 2 millimeters. The city slipped away behind you like a string of lights unraveling. Smaller roads, shoulders of wet grass, the scent of soil rising with the breeze. The sky, moonless, felt closer. You rested your forehead against the cold window and let the dark scenery wash away the remnants of the night. "How much time do we have?" you asked. He didn't answer with numbers. "Enough, as long as we don't mess up the obvious." At the first open gas station, you stopped for fuel and supplies. Before returning to the wheel, he ran his finger along your jacket's zipper, making sure it was pulled all the way up. The small gesture hurt like affection. How could something so simple make you feel so held, so loved? More back roads, a narrow bridge over a soundless river. He scanned the mirrors with the cadence of a prayer. Every now and then, his hand reached for yours in the dark space between the seats. A quick touch, an anchor, a promise. You felt the adrenaline start to fade, leaving behind a kind of clean exhaustion. On the dashboard, the clock read 4:20. He motioned with his chin toward the next curve. After that hill, the road turns to dirt. We're almost there. You nodded, mouth dry. "Where to?" you asked, unsure. "An old house. It's not pretty, but it's safe." The word landed on you like a blanket. When the dirt road began, the car vibrated differently, more honestly. The smell of the world shifted. Eucalyptus, damp earth, fresh milk from some far-off stable. And for a moment, everything felt possible. He slowed down, turned twice between large stones, and parked in front of a low wooden fence. "From here, we walk. Last 200 meters. The trail sloped gently through the trees, the ground sprinkled with old leaves. You could hear your own exhaustion, but he matched your pace patiently, his shoulder brushing close to yours, his body a wall you could lean on without falling. When the house came into view, it had no charm. Stone walls, dark tiles, small windows, but it radiated a kind of silence that didn't threaten. He pushed the door open. Dust in the air, the smell of wood and the past. He turned on the flashlight. "No recent signs," he said, more to himself than to you. You walked over to the window, opened it a crack, and let in the whisper of the trees. Your chest, finally, began to learn a new rhythm. He set down 2 glasses on the rusty table, poured a dose of something to calm the nerves, and said, "Survival isn't cowardice." He handed you a glass. Outside, the horizon rehearsed a shy orange. Inside, fear still lived, but no longer ruled. "Get some sleep," he said, voice trimmed down to what was necessary. "Don't worry, I'll handle everything." You thought about saying you didn't need that you were fine. But you didn't. You simply let your eyelids fall, a sliver of light tracing the lines of his face as morning arrived. For the first time in a long while, running didn't feel like giving up. It felt like choosing to live, all the way through. And you knew, even before falling asleep, that you were no longer alone. Hours later, you woke to pale light slipping through the cracks. For a few seconds, you didn't know where you were. Then the creak of the house, the distant murmur of wind in the trees, and his breathing somewhere nearby put everything back into place. Your body was heavy, but your mind, for the first time in ages, wasn't drowning in chaos. There was exhaustion, yes, but no panic. In the small kitchen, the kettle was softly whistling. He stirred something in an enamel mug, sleeves rolled up. When you moved, the floorboard creaked and he looked up. His gaze wasn't the kind of look someone gives a target. It was the kind you give when you're just making sure the person you care about is still there. Your heart warmed instantly. The coffee tasted bitter, but it warmed you from the inside like a quiet fireplace. You wrapped your fingers around the mug, letting the heat rise to your wrists. He sat across from you, not touching, but close enough that his presence felt like a wall against the wind. The words came without flourish, like someone laying pieces carefully on the table. He spoke of the emblem, 3 lines crossed by a central dot, the buried signature you'd once pretended to forget. He spoke of the man who was silenced, and the power vacuum pulling everyone toward the center. He admitted to old alliances that now made him ashamed, debts he paid with money, and those he still paid with sleepless nights. He told you about the dossier where he first saw your photo. Your old name, your records, the places you'd passed through to stop existing. Said he recognized in your eyes, even on paper, a pain he knew by heart. You listened in silence, receiving the truth with care. There were no rehearsed defenses, no perfect accusations, just a straight line connecting you to him. He could have hidden behind convenient lies, but he chose the open wound of truth. It hurt, and somehow it healed. You took a deep breath and let it go slowly. Forgiveness didn't come as a word. It came as a small gesture. Your hand, wrapped around the mug, reached out and found his. He hesitated for a moment, as if he doubted he deserved forgiveness from anyone. But your touch said, "I'm here." Said, "I'm not letting go." The afternoon dropped in copper tones over the stones outside. You both shaped a moment that felt like a home. He lit the fireplace, you swept the short hallway, both of you stocking the pantry like writing a prayer without words. The silence didn't weigh. It was woven from rest. When night rose in full, you sat on the floor of the living room. It was there that he spoke of something else. Quieter in sound, but heavy in meaning. He said the safety you had wasn't absolute. It was temporary. That the house was hidden, not impenetrable. That maybe you'd have to close one last circle for your name to stop being used as currency. He chose the words like someone walking across glass. Slowly, carefully, not in a rush, afraid to break what was still whole. After many stories and confessions, you fell asleep with your hand in his. Your fingers interlaced like they were holding onto edges. For the first time, there were no sudden jolts in the dark, no doors slamming, no footsteps echoing in memory's hallway. There was a dream, not one full of images, but a soft place where danger couldn't enter. When your eyes opened, a denser shadow covered his face. And it wasn't the firelight, it was decision. He smiled briefly, like someone asking you to stay calm before you understood why. His voice came out low, almost a secret that only exists between two people. "I need to go. I'll be back soon." You wanted to say no, wanted to lock the door, hide the key, invent some other way to fix things, but instead you just nodded, because there was a deeper trust floating between you now. The house breathed with you for the rest of the day. The fire, small. The kettle, warm. Your steps, measured. You opened the window and let the sound of trees flow in. Tried to read a few lines of an old book, but the letters blurred and danced. By late afternoon, the sky turned copper, and your old name returned to your mind, uninvited. You pushed it away, like closing a drawer. The day dripped by slowly, like cold honey. You swept the living room, straightened the chairs. The sun slipped through the sides of the window and painted the floor in a gold that reminded you of summer. You thought, if he doesn't come back today, I'll wait. If he doesn't come tomorrow, I'll wait. You didn't know how to measure how many hours could fit inside a promise. When the light was almost gone, the doorknob turned. The sound was so simple. It hurt. You stood up in a flash, the blanket falling from your shoulders, your heart tearing through your chest. The door opened slowly, and he stepped in, carrying the weight of resolution and the lightness of someone who had found the shoreline. His face bore new marks, but his eyes carried a peace you had never seen there before. "Is it over?" you asked, and your voice trembled like a candle flame. "It's over enough for us to live," he said, stepping closer. I erased what was left of the trail. The rest is just dust the wind will settle. You wanted some kind of proof, something small enough to hold in your hand. Instead, you rested your forehead against his chest and breathed him in. The smell of the street, of gasoline, of dry rain, all mixed with that warm, woody scent that calmed you. He wrapped his arms around you, and everything that didn't belong inside that house stayed outside. I thought you wouldn't come back, you whispered. I promised, he replied simply, like saying the sun always rises. You stayed like that for a while. Time didn't need a clock. Then he opened the window. The cold crept in uninvited, but it didn't hurt. He gave a small, quiet smile, genuine. We don't have to run anymore. Just live. The phrase settled over you like a soft, warm blanket. You rekindled the fire and had dinner without any kind of victory speech. He told you bits of what he'd done, names erased, lists burned, deals traded for silence, but spared you the details that wound without adding anything. You listened, not like someone checking for the truth, but like someone receiving a gift. When night finally settled in for good, you both stepped out onto the porch. The sky felt closer, dotted with slow-breathing stars. He stood behind you, hand resting gently on your waist, his chin on the top of your head. The world was vast, and for the first time in a long while, it wasn't an enemy. You thought about the name you carry now, and the one you left behind. You thought about how the most important things sometimes fit into the smallest gestures. A glass of water, a hug, a door opening. Inside, the fire crackled softly, calling you both back. It wasn't some loud miracle. It was the possible peace. And in that moment, it was enough. Days began to take on a different kind of weight. Not heavy, not light, just the right measure for someone who's learned how to stay, how to adapt. In the mornings, steam from the coffee draws swirls on the window. You watch the lines fade as the sun touches the stone in the backyard. He's fixing a crooked shelf, hammer tapping in rhythm, sleeves rolled up. The sound echoes softly through the house, and for a second, you think peace has its own simple sounds. Sometimes, when night falls and the fire settles into embers, he rests his chin on your invisible crown and whispers, "My love," like he's giving a home to a word that always belonged to you. You smile in the dark, lying beneath a coarse blanket that's grown soft with use. You discover love has textures that could never fit inside a dossier. Slowly, you recognize the house, and it begins to recognize you too. The floor creaks in the same places. The bedroom door still sticks. The porch has learned how to hold 2 chairs, and the silence between you. You walk the shortcut through the eucalyptus trees. The green scent opens your chest, and the bad memories hurt less. One afternoon, a storm announces itself with a leaden sky. When the rain comes, the house hums all over, the roof tapping out an ancient rhythm, and the scent of wet earth fills everything. Thunder roars its power. You light the fireplace. The crackle of wood welcomes the night. You have dinner slowly, and an old song plays on the radio, wrapping the moment in melody. In bed, he pulls you close, arms wrapped around your waist, his breath falling into sync with yours. The world, vast, no longer threatens you. You know now, you can finally sleep in peace. And so we close another story, where you are the protagonist and feel every emotion as your own. Now tell us in the comments, what story would you like to star in next time, in the next episode of the You Protagonist series?